Hey, it's Wednesday. That means we turn on the internet TV and Mitchell Forty and I hang out on YouTube. That's what we're doing. Gabe DeArm and Mitchell Forty here on the 573 Report, brought to you, oddly enough, by 573tees.com. Check them out. Give them some business. Buy your stuff there. Just give us a like. We don't even ask you to pay us any money. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you want to pay us money, you can pay us money, but we don't require it. We just ask you to hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel and hang out on the internet with us for an hour or so every Wednesday night. Mitch, busy week, man. Lots going on. We were just talking in our extensive pre-show meeting. I mean, we are slammed this week with Mizzou news.
Yeah, we've been working really hard. I'm trying to think. I mean, the soccer coach stepped down. Neither of us wrote about it. And
No.
that's been most of the developments.
That's been the newsiest thing that has happened. And look, that's fine. We're good with that because you know what? Sometimes, we still work incredibly hard every day. We don't want you to think that we're not working incredibly hard. We're not doing things like golfing or fishing or any of that stuff. But,
I wrote a story today.
So did I. Hey, it's a big day for both of us.
Yeah.
But look, in all seriousness, it is kind of the off season. It's a slower off season than usual. Also, Mizzou had has a dead week in recruiting. They are currently serving, I think it is their next to last week of no contact in football recruiting. The last one will be 2 or 3 weeks from now. So, I mean, if they can't recruit, we can't really write about who they're recruiting this week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even by slow off-season week standards, this is a slower one because there's not even any developments on that front, and maybe there will be in the basketball front, but we probably won't hear about them unless someone commits. So.
Right. We'll get to that eventually tonight, maybe. Jay Tate. Excited to see Mitchell, so we're fired up about that. Usually that's the Bob Douglas role on the show to put a bunch of
he did enter the transfer portal, so
Bob Douglas did.
I thought he said that on one of our shows at one point.
I thought maybe you meant Jay Tate did, and I was a little bit concerned, but good deal. All right, so here's what this show is going to be. Well, and like we invite comments, questions, whatever. This show is going to be what you guys want it to be for the next few weeks because realistically, like I said, it's kind of slow. We'll just we'll talk about whatever, but there's no point sitting around just talking about Mizzou sports that aren't actually happening. Because I don't know. Mitch, do you want to spend 10 minutes breaking down the soccer coach hot board real quick, or are we good?
I could not do that. I do not have 10 minutes worth of thoughts, or really even 1 minute worth of thoughts, to be honest.
Sporting Kansas City has a good coach. I can't remember his name, but maybe Mizzou will hire him. Maybe whoever coaches Stan Kroenke's team, maybe Missouri will hire him. But anyway,
people would be upset.
So what this show is really going to be is us just kind of coming up with different kind of fun topics to kick around until you guys come up with something better. So it actually is soccer related. And Mitch, I think we're both huge soccer experts, right?
Obviously,
you know a lot of soccer.
I know almost nothing about soccer. I know the names of a few teams. I know that you're supposed to put the ball in the net more times than the other team.
I know
That's about it.
I know there's a Manchester United and a Manchester City, I believe. So Manchester seems to be the hotbed of soccer. But it is soccer related in some ways. So for like 45 minutes a couple days ago, there was a soccer super league where they took like the 12 best teams and they were all going to hang out, and then everybody got mad and that went away. So it only lasted long enough for people to start coming up with their own ideas of college football super leagues. And now look, we're not above ripping off other people's ideas. We may get into our own college football super league, but what I mostly want to do is the first thing I saw about this was, I believe, from Stuart Mandel of The Athletic. He proposed 15 teams in a college football super league. And one of those 15, I know for a fact, was Nebraska. Now, what the hell are we doing here? Nebraska, I don't know if Nebraska is in the Big Ten Super League anymore, much less the college football Super League.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I would just start by saying that this is peak football offseason content. This is not actually happening.
Right.
This is just a way
It will
to
never
build the
happen.
web pages and get people to comment and all that, which is great. That's fine. And also, obviously, there is no objective criteria for a super league. So I guess theoretically, it could be whatever you want it to be. Like it
Well,
could be
no,
just the best teams. It could be
the one criteria
uh,
is that Nebraska no longer belongs in it. That is the one
Well, that's
criteria.
right. So that's where I'm working my way to that point. So like I'm not. It's hard to argue with something that's like doesn't exist. What I'm saying, but yeah, like it's hard for me to understand how Nebraska really in any way would belong. I mean, they haven't been nationally relevant since in about 20 years. I think it was 2001, right, that they last won or played for a national title. They have no proximity to talent to speak of. They have a big fan base in Nebraska, but not really a national following. It doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, however you want to break it down.
Well, they do have a national following between Grand Island and Kearney. Like, they are huge there. Now, when you get beyond that, maybe not as huge. But so the whole Super League thing, like you said, it's stupid. We know it's never going to happen, all that. But it is fun to like argue about. And I mean, there are some teams that aren't good now, but like, yeah, Texas belongs in a Super League, right? I get that. They're not very good now, but I get it. But Nebraska, I can actually probably make a better argument that Tennessee should be in a Super League. And like Tennessee's the fifth best team in the SEC East.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree because at least they've got that, more proximity to, talent and a kind of voracious viewership area and, not too far from Nashville, got some big cities in that state. Like, I mean, Nebraska doesn't have any cities as big as Nashville or Memphis or maybe even Knoxville. I'm not sure on that last one, but
Omaha might be bigger than Knoxville, but
it probably is.
But point remains, Nebraska, I actually saw I don't know if I sent it to you, but there's a great graphic on Twitter ranking Scott Frost's top 15 wins at Nebraska, and it just left the last 3 spots empty because he only has 12. So
that's amazing.
His third best win at Nebraska, by the way, is over Illinois. So
wow. All right. Well,
that's the highest Illinois has ever been ranked in anything football related since like 1997.
Yeah, pretty much.
So the only other
like rankings of coaches with the best white beard, they'd be maybe in the top 3.
Well, not anymore.
But he's gone now. So R.I.P.
Unless Brett Bielema grows one, then he'll just look like Santa Claus.
He might. He might.
I'd be in favor. So, your father also put together a Super League. I actually listened to the podcast that he does, and this one is more defensible, but. How do you feel about Texas A&M being involved there?
Yeah, well, I feel like I have to just start by saying that, like, I've long since realized that it's not a good idea to try to fight my father's battles and argue on his behalf.
Like, this is a legitimate question.
It's a real losing battle.
Right. I'm not nearly as upset about A&M as Nebraska. Right,
and also not nearly as upset about a lot of things he writes as most of the people who accost me about them.
Fair point. Yes.
Yeah, like so my thing is this, and I listened to their podcast, but I didn't read his thing about it. Sorry, Dad. In the podcast they left out Oklahoma, but included Texas A&M. That's what more I have a quibble of. If you could make an argument for Texas A&M, they haven't won anything.
They spend a lot of money.
Speak of, but that's kind of part of the deal, right? From what I understand, is like the Super League in Europe is just the rich teams, and they would be like that, that high market team, like in baseball with the big payroll or whatever. Like if we're making this like a pro Super League or whatever, and they obviously are close to a lot of a big area in Houston and a state that cares a lot in Texas, and but my thing is if you're gonna kind of double down on that Texas, Oklahoma, Southwest-ish area, not even Southwest, but that area of the country, Oklahoma has accomplished so much more and probably has a bigger following, at least in my mind. Maybe it's just being in Missouri, but I've definitely met more Oklahoma fans than I have Texas A&M fans. Yeah. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to pick Texas A&M at the expense of Oklahoma. But if you go to 15 or 16 teams, probably A&M is in there.
Yeah, I could live with that. But They won a national title in 1938. And then, well, they won a national title in 1938. Maybe in 2038, though. Maybe they'll be back. It'll be the centennial, and they'll win their second. But anyway, Super League was something fun to talk about. But, hey, before we go to our next pre-guided topic, I want to mention a couple things. First of all, I want to mention that Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports is going to join us about 8 o'clock. We are going to talk actual Mizzou stuff, not just like us playing grab ass for 30 minutes about the College Football Super League, but we're going to talk about Mizzou in the NFL draft, whether Nick Bolton's a first-round pick, how many Missouri players get their names called, all that, why Mac Jones is suddenly the number 3 pick in the draft, all sorts of things with Eric, who this is kind of his month to know everything and tell you guys everything. The other thing we have to cover is that we've got our first request, I think, on the 573 report for a shout-out to someone's boyfriend, Drew Norton. So, Drew Norton, thanks for watching, man. I'm curious if maybe you're actually on someone else's account and have requested a shout-out for yourself, because if you're watching, like, you could comment, and we will actually even put your comment on the screen. So, Drew Norton, if you are out there, say what's up, say hi to your girlfriend, whatever you want to do, feel free. We will give you a shout out here on the 573 report. This is the kind of thing that we do, especially during the off season when we're really just trying to fill time until Eric joins us at 8 o'clock. So here's the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is completely random. I pulled this out of thin air, but college sports is kind of an emotional deal, right? That's the difference between college sports and pro sports, is people are emotionally attached. And like, you know, there was talk on our message board about people being angry about a bowl game that Missouri lost in 2003 this week. So that's the kind of thing that college sport, I mean, it is 2021. It was 18 years ago, but people hold on to things. So just before I give any thoughts on this, I came up with this, and I want to know what you think. Let's say that Bill Self decides getting paid $5 million a year at Kansas and being allowed to walk around in money chains and have Snoop on campus and all that is not good enough, and he wants to leave Lawrence, Kansas, and he calls Jim Sturk and says, Jim, I want to be your basketball coach. Now, I'm taking all the NCAA stuff out of it. Let's pretend he's in no NCAA trouble.
Okay.
Could Jim Sturk actually say, yeah, we want to hire Bill Self?
Yes, I think so. So my answer was going to be probably not because of the NCAA stuff, and I was going to say if he's leaving Kansas, he knows something big is coming, and it's not going to be the trouble that it's worth. Missouri fans would not love it. They've spent a lot of time disliking Bill Self,
right?
But he's a great coach. I mean, one of the best. I mean, you know, people, you know, there's a legitimate gripe to point at to how he got some of his talent, but he's clearly a very, very good coach. And also, you could kind of spin it, I think, as sticking it to Kansas, you know, like I just had enough of it there. I wanted to come over to the good side of the rivalry. Like, I think it could work. You know, these types of things can get overlooked when you're talking about bringing in the type of winner as a coach that Missouri hasn't had since Norm Stewart.
Yeah, Adam says he would take him. A lot of Missouri, because he's won so big, a lot of Missouri fans would take him. I mean, it's not like hiring, David Beatty, but
right.
But the first reaction of a lot of people would be, hell no, I don't want that dude coaching here because he coached at KU. I mean, there were people that, like Damani Cross went to school here, and there were people that were mad Damani Cross coached here because he coached a year at Kansas.
Yeah, I get it. But I think that, like, I just think that at a certain point, if you can get that good of a winner, like we say it all the time, winning cures everything in college sports. Like if you can win, people will look past a lot. Like, I think an interesting comparison, like not even nearly as big of a rival, and could be a good coach, but hasn't won as big. Brad Underwood. I don't think Mizzou fans make that trade because you don't know for sure what he can really do at this point. And, obviously, yes, they play every year. It's sort of a rivalry, but I think they would be, my point is, I think they would be more willing to accept Bill Self, even though he spent forever at Missouri's longtime rival, or bigger rival than Brad Underwood, just because of the winning.
Maybe. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who wouldn't. I guarantee you there are a decent number of people who would give up season tickets if Missouri hired Bill Self, who is like the winningest coach in college basketball the last 20 years.
Yeah, I could see it, but I think that you bank on winning enough games if you're Jim Sturk that you replace those people with other people who want to see an exciting basketball team.
That's probably right. And I hadn't thought about it, but like you actually have some experience with this. I mean, Rick Pitino's got to be the only dude that's coached on both sides of a rivalry like that, right?
Oh,
Louisville and Kentucky?
Yeah, for sure.
Did Kentucky fans care?
Yeah, they cared. I don't remember all that well when he was hired. I want to say it was like 2005 or even before that, 2003. So I would have been 8. I remember, but I don't remember. I was not really in tune with the pulse of the fan bases at age 8. You know, I remember being like, oh yeah, that's interesting. He coached at Kentucky. But yeah, it was absolutely something that it added to the rivalry. And, you know, it was something that would get brought up a lot, you know, when I was a kid watching those games, and Kentucky fans would mention it. I remember years ago going to a game in Rupp Arena, and you know, they had a bunch of artwork on the walls and stuff, and there was like a weird little like page of it was supposed to be like a dictionary of terms, and it like I forget what the exact one was, but there was a few things, you know, about like, you know, BBN, what's it mean, but whatever, and one was like something like traitor or Patinoitis or something, that's like when you're a traitor or something like that. Like it was literally painted on the wall in Rupp Arena by one of the concession stands. Maybe someone out there like will have a picture or something, probably not someone watching this show, but right. I don't remember the exact wording, but like it was a thing.
So but that's the point. It has to be like a Rick Pitino or a Bill Self level winner. I mean, like Missouri could never hire Mark Turgeon to be its basketball coach, because like he's not good enough to overcome the fact that he went to KU. And like here's, and this isn't a Missouri Kansas thing. I mean, legitimately, Quinn Snyder's going to be the NBA Coach of the Year probably this year, right? Coach the All-Star team, may go to the finals, all that. Had he called the North Carolina athletic director and said, I want to leave the Utah Jazz to coach North Carolina would have said, no, we're going to hire Hubert Davis.
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah, that is correct. So, yeah, and like, maybe that's not smart, but I get it more in that sense when you're Carolina and you can attract a really good candidate, or at least should be able to. Again, we talked about how Hubert Davis, he may do great, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to settle for him when you have that type of job. Excuse me. But when you're Missouri and like, pretty much every time Missouri is hiring a new coach, it's a roll of the dice. You're either getting someone who's, been decent at another Power 5 stop and left it for whatever reason and hoping he can do better or those issues don't crop up or whatever, or taking a chance on a young up-and-comer and hoping that, he can be, again, something he hasn't yet proven he can be. Bill Self has proven it time and time again. I mean, like, yes, you could say at a certain point he should have probably won more than one national title, but when that's your criticism of a coach, he's done a pretty good job. Well, not that many out there have won a national title.
And the whole point is, like, where you went to school should not be a qualification or a disqualification for a job. This could actually work the other way for Missouri fans now. They're so against hiring Missouri graduates, like, they might be more likely to hire a KU guy than hire a guy who went to Mizzou, because Kim Anderson and Barry Odom kind of done wrecked that for him.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. That's a good point. And I think, just Brett Roberts brings up, and as I mentioned, I think you could totally spin it as like, Bill Self could just throw out a line like, I was tired of the KU fans, or like, you could spin it as like him choosing this school over that school.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. That's the kind of thing that was going through my head this week, because like literally the biggest thing that's happened is that the soccer coach retired, who, by the way, in his last game beat Kansas. I know.
There you go. Maybe he'll go coach at Kansas.
Maybe he will. We'll see. It's like when you were a high school teacher in Missouri and then you could retire there and go teach at Kansas for 5 years and then you could get double pension. Maybe that's what Brian Blitz is going to do.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Sounds good. I don't even know if Kansas played soccer, to be quite honest with you.
Well, he just said he beat them, so they have to.
Fair point. I mean, it could have been
unless
like
they lost to Mizzou and immediately folded the program, which could happen, I guess.
It also could have been like the intramural team, like the beta house just played against Missouri's varsity.
the club team or something.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're going off the rails here a little bit, but I don't feel like we were really on the rails to begin with, to be quite honest with you. So, yeah, we did have an actual legitimate question earlier about basketball recruiting and any idea what big guys Mizzou is recruiting in the portal. And the truthful answer is, on my end, not really. Maybe you do, but if so, you have not shared that with me.
Yeah, I would share it with the board at a minimum. No, I really don't. I know that they're recruiting Langston Wilson, the junior college kid. Mm-hmm. Really interesting story. He didn't play at all in high school because doctors, I guess, either suspected he had or found that he had a heart condition, but he got cleared and has been playing at a junior college in Georgia for the past couple of years and committed to Alabama. Basically, he said that they mutually agreed to part ways. I think Alabama kind of filled up its spots.
Alabama was a little more mutual than he was, maybe.
Yeah, but interesting prospect. Mizzou's been in touch with him, has not offered that we know of, at least that he's tweeted, and he has tweeted other offers. So I assume that they haven't offered yet. That's the only big that we know of as a target. I'm sure they've been in contact with some other guys. I mean, like, there's still a few guys out there in the portal who, like, it was said Mizzou had contacted, like, Bayron Matos or whatever. But like, I feel like we would have heard more on that front if Mizzou was really pursuing. Same with that Oladapo kid who, Mizzou contacted, but we haven't heard anything more about Mizzou, and we have heard more about other schools since then. So
and he committed
really
to Pittsburgh.
The answer is. Oh, well, there you go. I missed that. The answer is, other than Langston Wilson, I don't have any names for you right now.
I like that. I like that mutually agreed to part ways. It's like, it's like all my breakups were always mutual, unless it was my decision. Then it was not mutual.
Then it was your decision. Yeah.
Right. They spent months regretting it, and I was just like, nah, we're good. Greg Marshall in Wichita State mutually agreed that he should not be allowed to keep hitting and screaming at players, and so they mutually agreed to give him $7 million.
Right. Yeah.
I want to be clear. I don't think Greg Marshall is watching the 573 report and suing us for slander. But to my knowledge, Greg Marshall did not actually hit a player. He was just very mean to them.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot that would have been close to bordering on physical abuse in there, but I don't think he struck a player.
Right.
I don't know.
So
but
I'm not
going to rule it
out. I just don't want to accuse people.
You're just trying not to get sued for slander.
Yeah. I just don't want to accuse people of crimes that they did not actually commit. I would prefer to focus on the crimes they actually did commit or are accused of committing. Aldon Smith probably not playing in the NFL anymore.
Yeah.
How'd you like that segue? That was solid, I thought.
That was nice. That was smooth. I think, unfortunately, he's probably out of strikes at this point. It was kind of a cool story to see him come back last season and have a good season. But I mean, I have no idea how many times he's been arrested now. But it seems like we have to be at one too many by this point. Assuming that he doesn't get cleared from this latest deal once the whole story comes out.
Because I feel like he kind of came back. Last year was kind of a no tolerance thing. Like, okay, you're back in the league. It's been 3 years. Jay Glazer vouched for you. That's a weird deal, by the way. I don't know when Jay Glazer turned into a trainer, and an advocate for Aldon Smith, but good for him. So yeah, like, we'll let you in this time, but we probably don't do this again. And I don't know. I mean, I'll say this: at least he was masked up in his mugshot. I mean, he's a socially conscious citizen in at least one way.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually I was in the New Orleans area for part of this past week, and not when he was there exactly, or
Did you
not
go to
when
that
he
coffee
was
shop?
Alleged to have committed the crime. No, but I was saying it would have been kind of wild if I ran into him down there, and then maybe got a quick interview with him or something if I saw him.
Yeah,
bam.
Yeah. But like, and I want to be like, we don't mean to make too much light of this because it's too bad, and there's obviously things going on there that are well beyond normal kind of human
poor decision making.
Yeah. It's beyond just he makes bad decisions. So it would be great if he was, was on the straight and narrow and was going to be an NFL player, because Like, he's really good when he's on the field, but when you reach a point where you're that good and you can't be in the league anymore, like, that takes a lot of strikes, man. Like, it's a lot more than 3, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I don't know how many times he's been arrested, but I'm pretty confident it's more than 3. And it is a bummer. And, obviously wish it could have worked out for him. But at this point, hopefully, I mean, all you can keep saying is hopefully that this is kind of the wake up call that,
right.
Prevents him from, I mean, if the worst thing that happens to him is he's done playing in the NFL, that's not that bad considering some of the stuff he's been through and allegedly done. So hopefully it's just kind of the wake up call he finally needs.
Yeah, excellent point. Pocket Watch it brings up a good question. Do you have a choice about wearing a mask when you're taking a mugshot? I mean, I feel like they probably didn't just hand him a mask and tell him to hang it over his ear. I feel like he had legitimately had that mask with him. I'm going to give him credit.
It seems reasonable because, he had to take it off for the mugshot. So if he was strolling in there without a mask, they probably wouldn't give him one just as a side prop.
100%. I mean, I don't want to test it. I don't know, Mitch. Have you been arrested since this whole pandemic started?
I have not. No.
Okay.
Should I go out and give it a shot? Just report back.
I'd prefer not. I might have to actually write a story this week if that happens. But so we have promised you other things besides our grabassery on this show, and we're going to get to those in just a second because Eric Edholm is hanging out with us on the line. We'll bring him in just a minute. But before we do that, we want to make sure that you guys know about 573tees.com. That is our local sponsor, local being here in Columbia, Missouri. However, you can access them from anywhere in the world through the magic of this thing called the internet. Go to 573tees.com. If you go through the link on our show page, you get 10% off your first purchase. They have all kinds of good stuff. Still haven't seen where Ed Chang has landed, so they still have not produced the Ed Chang jersey for me. We are okay. I see Eric in our one window. Now all I have to do is figure out the technology of adding him to this window. There he is. Hang on. Okay, there's Eric. Eric, what's up, man? Can you hear us?
No, perhaps not.
Oh, wait. No? No audio.
Okay. Yeah, Eric, I think you're muted. If you can find the unmute button somewhere.
Okay.
Perhaps.
We're gonna do this on the fly. There you go.
There we go. There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I do a good mime, guys.
Yeah.
But not that good, right? Yeah.
I mean, it at least did communicate to us that no, you could indeed not hear what we were saying, or we could not hear you.
You just couldn't hear me. I had the mute button there, and I was.
It
was my greatest little 20-minute segment ever, 20-second segment ever, but it's all right.
The shame of the whole thing is just when this pandemic ends, we're all going to learn how to use technology. So not before then. But.
Minutes, right? Exactly.
So Eric, for those who don't know, Eric Edholm, Yahoo Sports draft expert. We're going to talk about all that shortly, but we have spent the first 30 minutes of the show talking about important things such as and you are a Mizzou grad, so you'll have an opinion on this. You don't cover Missouri, so you might watch the teams a little more emotionally than we do at this point. So if Bill Self decided, take the NCAA stuff out of it, if he was facing no violations, if Bill Self just decided tomorrow morning, you know what, I'm kind of done with this whole thing in Lawrence. I'm going to call Jim Sturk, and I want to be the basketball coach at Missouri. Can Jim Sturk hire Bill Self?
Like, take the lifetime contract, rip it up in Kansas.
Doesn't matter. NCAA stuff doesn't exist. He just wants to coach Missouri.
Absolutely. Okay. Listen, I have no soul. Like, I don't have, much of, even knowing that other trouble could be down the line, even if we expunge his entire record. First of all, remind me if I'm not mistaken, was he not kind of wanting this job when Quinn Snyder got it, right?
He interviewed for it, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the word, and he was sort of the least known of the three options, I guess. And I'm curious, kind of funny how that worked out, I guess. But yes, I like I said, I have no shame. I would take Bill Self. And again, it's not an anti-Conzo Martin sentiment. It is. Right. I know exactly what Bill Self is, and he produces really good basketball teams. So. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just how I roll. I don't really have much in the way of scruples.
Okay.
That was my answer as well, Eric.
Okay, good. So, listen, I'm fitting right in, and that's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anywhere you want to fit in, it is on the Power Mizzou YouTube show.
Yes.
I know when you take a job at an entity like Yahoo Sports and you cover national stuff like the draft, you just say, I wonder when I can get an invite to that show Gabe's doing on YouTube with Mitchell.
Right.
That's what I want to be.
And now that I've done it, it will go prominently on my resume, my QV, if you will, and will be, tapered all over, tapestried all over my wall,
Yeah, we want your Twitter bio edited as soon as this show is over.
Infrequent visitor to the Power Mizzou podcast. That's right.
So, all right, so we won't waste your entire night just rambling on like we've wasted our entire night. So let's get to it. We're going to talk some general draft stuff, but the people watching are more interested in Missouri. So I feel like there was a point where some people thought Nick Bolton was going to go late in the first round, and I feel like that point's gone. I don't see him much in the first round. Is that an accurate read of things?
I think the sense that I've gotten talking to people about Nick and a couple of conversations I've had in the last, really since the pro day, I would say, is that there's a high appreciation for him as a player. They love the kid. They've heard great things from the staff. They watched the tape. They're excited by it. But in this day and age, even with his coverage ability and his closing speed, his instincts, they're all top notch. The physical freaks, the guys who are a little bit bigger, a little taller, a little longer, a little faster, even with a good 40 on his pro day. I mean, I still think those guys are going to get a little bit more buzz. That's why you see Zaven Collins from Tulsa above him on most lists for good reason. He's going to get drafted ahead of Nick. So I agree. I would guess I had to put a sort of a range on it, somewhere in the 40 to 60 overall, so squarely in that second round picture. But it also would stun me to see him trickle into the first handful of picks of round 3.
So I'm kind of sticking with, obviously, Nick Bolton, and that's kind of the same reason Missouri got him is he was very productive in high school, but just didn't have the size, didn't have the length to kind of end up at a higher rated school. I guess just what is kind of the scouting report on him, taking out the kind of the interview stuff, which I know we don't know the details of that, but what is kind of your sense of just kind of the scouting report on him at this point?
Yeah, I mean, he plays fast. I know he ran a very respectable 40 time, but I don't know that he's got what you would call elite speed for the position. The coverage ability is certainly very attractive. We saw him make a lot of plays, especially in 2019, obviously, but he's not an exceptional blitzer, I don't think. I mean, it's not anything he's bad at or anything, but I think taking on, being able to stack and shed against 320-pound guards is a concern. So if you put him on a scheme where he's covered up nicely, they have big defensive tackles, he's given free lanes to attack the rush, to make plays out in the flat on quick swing passes. That's his game to me. He showed it against Alabama. It was obviously a massive team with an incredible skill level. It's the closest thing to an NFL team. So I feel good about his ability to transition to the NFL. There are just some people who get hung up on the fact that he's under 6 foot, even if it's by less than an inch essentially. So the fact that, even while well built, still may not have the true power to kind of overwhelm, blockers in space. So it's a little nitpicky. I think I had him as my number 41 overall player, but he's a tough kid. He's durable. He's got that sort of fiery leader by example. I love him. I like him as a player, and I think he's going to play in this league for a while.
Well, I don't know how you talk about Nick Bolton for 2 minutes and we don't even address if he's competitive enough to win rock, paper, scissors against the Eagles general manager, but,
yeah. Did you guys see that?
I did see that. Yeah. This is like the lead up to the NFL draft is it's when otherwise intelligent people get incredibly stupid and talk about things that don't matter. I mean, like Joe Burrow a year ago maybe couldn't throw a football because his hand was too little, even though he just thrown for 6,000 yards, Right. So this is what we do.
It's so true. I remember a punter, Michael Dixon, was with the Seahawks.
Oh, yeah. He was the MVP of the Texas Bowl in his last college game. I was there.
Oh, well, you guys remember him well, of course. Yes. The Australian punter who destroyed Missouri in the bowl game. Yeah, he said that the Seahawks, the team that ended up drafting him, asked him if he wanted to conduct a staring contest. So that was like we missed the combine this year, and that's what we were robbed of with these types of, when you stare into a man's soul and really kind of find out exactly how good a football player they are by a staring contest. He said he won, by the way. I think he had like 15 or 18 seconds without blinking, so he can punt and he can hold off blinking for long periods of time.
That might have been the key. He might have just stared at the ball and forced it to stop at the 6-inch line every time he punted it, because he was the most amazing punter I've ever seen in my life.
That game will never leave my brain. That was something else. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of worked because the Seahawks were the team that drafted him, and he's pretty good. So maybe they need to keep doing staring contests.
If you turn down rock, paper, scissors staring contests, you just get erased from the draft board, and it's curtains. Some other team's gonna have to deal with your stubbornness.
And hey, I want to invite you guys watching, if you've got questions. We're going to talk about all Mizzou's guys, but if you've got draft questions or whatever, hit them up in the chat. We'll try to get them to Eric. But so the other guy, the guy that I think is maybe Missouri's second guy off the board, and it kind of surprised me that he left early, but Larry Borum. I mean, is this a guy that you think gets his name called?
Yeah, I don't know that he's second. It's hard to say. I mean, the feeling I've gotten is maybe middle of day 3 on him or something like that, but he's obviously got the mass. He's started at 3 different positions on the offensive line. I think he's probably a right guard or a right tackle, but good positional flexibility, I would say. Not amazing length for his height. I mean, if I remember correctly, his arms were a little bit on the short side. Teams care about this stuff. Right. Lateral movement, not great. Pretty good athlete overall, not special in any way, but just a massive dude. The teams that really seek that size and that power at that position, he's a strong kid, and even the Chiefs I would throw out there as a possibility given their offensive line situation. But yeah, I mean he was a mauler in the run game, I thought, especially, and that was where I envision him having the most success in the NFL. But you work in an offense like the one Drink ran last year, you showed you could still play at a high level. I think that's a lot of quick stuff, a lot of tempo. I mean, that probably did well for him in the long run. So yeah, I would guess round 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that range.
Before Mitch's next question, I do want to say, if the Chiefs take Larry Borum at number 31 overall, we're never doing this show again. I'm done. I'm never going to talk about football.
They might hold out just a little longer than that on him, but yeah, I could see it.
I wish Larry all the best, but
I think they're going to trade up to take him. That's what I heard from my sources. Yeah. Well, Gabe obviously mentioning Larry Borum as the second player off the board. If the Chiefs don't trade up and take him first among Mizzou players, another guy who's in that conversation as potential second Mizzou guy off the board is obviously Tyreek Gillespie. Had a really good pro day. I'm curious, before kind of getting into what you see out of him as a prospect, how much stock or lack of stock do teams put in 40s from pro days when you don't have a combine, and like all these other results from pro days when you don't have a combine?
It's tough, right? I mean, everything's been – I mean, the biggest thing that I've heard from NFL people is the medical information. They've found ways to make the Zoom interviews work, and it's not perfect. You'd rather – if you're going to play rock, paper, scissors, better be in person, I think. But seriously, I think some of these guys do like to sort of pull the chair up close, like the good cop, bad cop routine, and do all that stuff. But the medical information is the biggest thing. The next on that list might be the accuracy of the pro day tests. And the thing about Indy is, these athletes go there, they check in, they have all these forms they have to fill out, they get shuttled. It's like waiting for basic training. Hurry up and wait and stand over there and do that. They have meetings all night, all day, and then after 3 days of that nonsense, getting poked and prodded with the medical staff, then they have to run in Indianapolis. Tyreek Gillespie and the rest of the Mizzou guys woke up out of their bed, ate whatever they wanted for breakfast, got a big stretch in. They were on their own time, right? And then they could run their 40-yard dash. So when people say, it's a friendly clock, these are all NFL scouts from different teams. They're not fudging times, but it's the conditions around which they're working out that are very friendly. So it's a great question. I think everybody is maybe adding anywhere from 0.3 or 0.03 of a second, up to a full 1/10 of a second. I don't know if that's going to happen across the board, but the 40 times have felt a little inflated. And, I mean, what did Gillespie run? Like a 4.4 something,
4.38, something like that, yeah.
4.38, 4.4, right? I mean, that wasn't what I expected, and you could apply that to a number of guys in this draft where you went, he's that fast. Okay, I guess I got to go back and watch the tape. And usually what happens is everybody goes back to the number that, like, scouts predict how fast the guy is. Like, they look at him and they say he's a 4.5 guy, and that sometimes is what they end up going off of, as opposed to the pro day time. So I know it's a little weird, but that's sort of what I've been led to believe is how the process is going.
I mean, is Gillespie a guy definitely gets picked, probably gets picked? What do you think?
Yeah, I think he gets picked. I know the season didn't end the way that either the coaches or he probably wanted. It seemed like he tailed off towards the end of the year. The lack of interceptions in his career is certainly going to be, or just plays on the ball is going to be something that comes up. I thought he looked great early against Alabama, that particular game. Made a couple big plays, kind of tone-setting plays. Did seem to maybe blow a coverage on one of those early touchdowns, but still, pretty good size, around 6 foot, over 200 pounds, runs a 4.4, the pro day workout, passed the test, has some range. I think he ends up being about a 5th-round pick. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up going before, after Bolton, before Larry Borum. So that's my ballpark guess, is that he'll be about a top 150 pick, somewhere in that range.
You know who else I thought made some tone-setting plays in that Missouri-Alabama game was Jalen Waddle. I came away impressed with
that one. Yes, I think if there's a tape to show for the Jalen Waddle experience, that would be a pretty good one, I think.
Yeah, it's probably mostly from that game. So obviously just kind of going down the list of Mizzou guys, I think we've covered the 3 who most people would say they expect to get picked. And then there's a couple other guys who are kind of on the fringe, and Larry Roundtree, maybe Joshua Bledsoe. What do you I guess put the chances at that one of those guys hears their name called?
Yeah, I think there's maybe 50-50 for each of them. Believe it or not, this running back class kind of drops off a little bit after a certain point. Really, for me, after like the top 4 or 5 guys,
Okay.
And so there aren't a whole lot of guys who do exactly what he does. I know he's not fast, but obviously the ability to kind of pinball off tackles and be that tough first and second down runner certainly, adds some appeal to him. Is he going to catch a lot of passes? He can be great in pass protection. That's probably not where he wins, but there's nothing really special about him except for his effort. I think, he seems like he's added muscle to his frame over the years. From what I recall, as a freshman, you see him rumbling through the tackles. He looked pretty lean, and then by his senior year, it felt like he'd added some body armor, and now he's in that 215 range or whatever he is. So, I know he may have slimmed down for the pro day, but I kind of like the fact that he's a hard charger, but I suspect he'll always be that sort of 3rd running back on an NFL team. That to me says, 6th round, probably. He reminds me a little of Eno Benjamin from Arizona State last year, and I think Benjamin was actually a late 7th round pick. So you never know at that stage of the draft. I just don't think the running back class is all that deep. So he's got a shot. And then Bledsoe, maybe a little more of a reliable player in some respects than Gillespie was, but a little less flashy, a little less impressive physically speaking. And he's got a shot late. Otherwise, he'll be a priority free agent. But he's a pretty good little college player, I think, and who, will be on a camp's roster at some point this summer.
See, I like having you on because I know you actually know who these guys are because you're a Mizzou guy. But like some draft analysts, I would want to bring them on and be like, so what do you think about John Franklin from Missouri? He got a shot, and just see if they'd be like, yeah, fast twitch, good hips, really like him, probably a 6th-round guy.
Right. A little stiff in the hips, right? Yeah. That special teams versatility, right? Yeah, that is always a fun thing. I went on a show a couple years ago where they said, we're going to ask you about some of the, UNC prospects. Great. And they pulled somebody out that I had never heard of. And I felt pretty prepared coming in. I mean, I had to just, I said, look, when you look at scouting in general, right? And I went into this like 30-second spiel about scouting, and they looked at me like, okay, buddy. Yeah, great. Thanks for that non-answer.
It's like when the guy walks up to you on the street and says hi, and you're like, what's up, man?
Hey, dude.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Same.
So.
Gotta act like you know exactly what you're talking about, right?
A couple national, just kind of big picture things that I want to get into, and we'll let you run. But this kind of one of the viewers kind of leads into the question I was going to ask. He's asking about how Trey Lance will be as a pro. So here's what I want to know. When in the draft did we hit the point where it is a rule if you have a top 10 pick, you're taking a quarterback? Like, I mean, we're talking about like 6 of the top 10 all of a sudden, and I don't quite understand it.
Yeah. We've never had 5 go in the top 10. It's entirely possible that happens. I don't think we're going to get 4 in a row to start the draft. I keep sort of getting the feeling that Atlanta might stick with Kyle Pitts or somebody like that. So that said, you still could have quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, possibly to the Broncos at 9, and then maybe somewhere in between. If not, it's shortly thereafter. But you're right. This is an unusual deal. To me, I think it does speak to the intrigue of the talent, and it includes guys like Lance who, had 350 dropbacks in their career. Like, that's about a season, maybe less, right, for most guys. So he's an unprecedented evaluation, I think. 17 games at the FCS level. Carson Wentz had like 28 or 9, I think.
That's gone well.
Yeah, right. And then, Easton Stick's a backup in LA, and Wentz is on his second team, and nobody thinks he's, a miracle worker. So that works against Lance. The fact that he didn't play all but 1 game last year, that works against him. But boy, is he impressive physically, and boy, is he impressive mentally. So I like the kid. Would I bet large sums of money that he's going to be great? No. I'll just give him a good grade and hope it works out. He's either going to be tremendous or he's going to get stuck in a bad situation and not play for 3 years. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to find out.
Yeah, and obviously that is a big piece to it for a lot of players, but especially the quarterback, where they go. I'm curious. I just thought of this question a moment ago when you were talking about being asked about guys you've never heard of. Like, you covered the draft and prepare for the draft much more than the layperson. And I always talk about, how people always overestimate the number of Missouri players who are going to get drafted because they don't realize how many just random prospects there are out there.
Sure.
How often does it happen that someone actually gets picked in the draft that you have basically no idea who they are?
I would say, so I've been in this role now. This will be my 3rd draft back with Yahoo. I was with them before, and I did draft stuff, but now, as my focus, where I'm looking at guys in August or whatever. I think there were about 12 guys last year who got picked. And I'm trying to remember, there was actually like a late 5th rounder that I had never watched. I'd seen him on lists and things like that, but, I'd probably seen his pro day numbers, but didn't know anything about him. And then another, 10 or 11 guys after that. So I try to at least watch some of these guys and just say, all right, I want to say that I've seen them, right? Or maybe I've watched them while watching another prospect and I can at least sort of fudge it for a little bit, but I don't know how you get the time to, because I'm asked to do other stuff too, but I don't know how any one person can say they've watched really like 500 prospects, because if you were to combine the draft boards of all 32 teams, you probably have over 500 names. I just don't know how it's possible. I really don't.
And all those teams have like 27 guys making hourly wages breaking down this film that you're just supposed to do that for Yahoo.
And like a scouting director, I know there are guys who haven't watched every single player. Mm-hmm. They leave it to the area scouts and the position coaches to kind of make some of the later picks because, they know them intimately. They know the position group or they know the school. And it's smart delegation, because if you don't know them, don't pick them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I think that 12 is a good. That's impressive. I will easily be at 12 players I've never heard of by the end of the 2nd round.
Yeah. No question. No question.
You just got to make a list and just fire through them. That's the best advice I have. If you ever become a draft analyst, don't do
it. So you mentioned quarterback in Denver. Do you get the sense that's where that's going? And is that, hey, we got to have something because we don't know if Drew Lock is the guy, or is that we're done with Drew Lock being the guy?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gabe. It's a new GM there. It's John Elway has kind of stepped back a little bit in the decision-making role. Vic Fangio, I think, is probably on the hot seat for this season. I think they want options. That's the best way I can read it. And George Payton came from the Vikings. They didn't really draft a lot of quarterbacks high. He was there for a number of years. It's been a while. When they did, it was Christian Ponder and stuff, so they didn't have a lot of success doing it. It's hard to say exactly what I think they'll do, in round 1, or do they draft somebody early in round 2? But I think Drew's going to get somebody who will be promised the chance to push for his job. That's the best way I could probably say it.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. As a Broncos fan, I would say, I'm not totally on board with the idea of drafting a quarterback in the top 10, but I think it's almost a guarantee that yes, they will bring in someone either in like the 2nd or 3rd round or in free agency who at least has the chance to push Drew Lock. So
and my guess as well. If you have a high grade on Justin Fields and he happens to be there at 9, and you're confident that your team is going to be able to compete or something like that. It's like, how do you pass him up? There's not a lot of great defensive talent in this draft. Unless you have another position player who's just screaming draft me because he's the highest guy on your board, that quarterback position is always so. But again, we don't really know what they feel about Drew. It's been a little bit of a mixed message so far.
Mm-hmm. I had one more Mizzou-centric question for you that I wanted to circle back to, and it's relating to Larry Roundtree. He said you actually give a shot to get picked. I'm curious, obviously super productive in college, but is that a knock on running backs at times that for a guy to have as many carries as he had in his Missouri career, basically 4 years of being a feature back?
Right, 200 carries a year or 200 touches a year or whatever, right? I mean, he's going to come into the NFL with, the 1,000 carry mark used to be sort of the benchmark back in the day. Like if you had that many touches in college, you were damaged goods. It's been dropped a little bit, I think, over the years because guys come out early, they transfer schools, whatever happens. Some backs are used more as receivers. That's not really his thing, obviously. So yeah, there's less tread on his tires, right? I mean, he's a physical runner. He's not somebody who's squirting around tacklers. He's the guy who's taking them head on in some cases. So. Yeah, I think that comes as a little bit of a negative against him, the lack of, pass receiving ability that he's shown, or at least two different coaching staffs didn't feel the need to feature it very much. Yeah, those are two sort of knocks against him. Not an elite athlete, not super creative, but he gives you everything you have. You can run through contact. I think he's got the work ethic to be a special teams player if you need him to be. So, but yeah, it works both ways, right? You want a guy who hasn't run that much, but you want to see enough on tape. Right. So I don't give it a whole lot of credence, but yeah, I would say it hurts him for a little bit.
All right, last thing for you, Eric. I would just want to give you a chance, and everybody who watches this show or subscribes to our site knows what I thought of Therese Paylor and the work he did, and you guys you actually were the person that informed me of what happened when he died a couple months ago. And you and Pete Thamel and Charles Robinson got together and continued his tradition. So, I mean, for anybody who didn't know Therese, he basically did that for fun every year on top of being an NFL writer. But just kind of for you guys who knew him obviously even better than we did, what kind of a, I guess, labor of love was that doing that?
Yeah, I mean, and as if I needed another reason to have even more, immense respect for the man, right? Like taking on this project, and like you said, I mean, I do this almost year round, right? And trying to come up with the right. There was pressure. I felt like I wanted to make sure I got Therese's guy. So, we just missed the guy so much, and we talked about what kind of players we wanted. We wanted guys with effort, attitude, performance. Those were the pillars of his all juice team. People in Kansas City ate it up. People at Yahoo Sports ate it up. So, we worked hard on making sure we had the right 22 there. I think he'd be proud of us. And he's a tremendous loss. And we just wanted to, keep his memory going as best we can. And what better way to do that with the All Juice team? And so if you're listening out there, please support the great foundation at Howard University for him. I know you guys have the charity named after him as well. It shows how much respect there is out there for Therese, and we love him.
All right, well, you got another week to make sure you get everything right. Redo that mock, get Larry Borum, number 9, Denver Broncos,
right.
and we're good. So, Eric, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I'll do it, yes. All right, boys. Have a great night.
All right,
see ya.
Have a good one. We'll talk to you later on. Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports joining us, and he does the draft year-round. Appreciate him certainly joining us, taking some time. He does stuff like this all over, and I know he gets hit up by all the Mizzou guys because he is a Mizzou guy. So appreciate him taking the time, and I don't know, I guess I'm a little surprised, Mitch, that it seems pretty much certain that, like, Drew Lock's on borrowed time, huh?
I mean, I don't know if it's certain. If they take a quarterback in the first round, then it's fairly certain, right. I think. But I still think there's a decent chance that, it's something along the lines of, like, they sign, a veteran on a 1-year type of deal, or, draft a guy in the second or third round to just at least have an option there in addition to Drew Lock. My guess is still that, and maybe this is wishful thinking, that they, address another need with a top 10 pick that, because there certainly still needs there.
I mean, look, I've seen that team. They are not a quarterback away from unseating the Chiefs or maybe even the Chargers in that division. Like, they need.
Right. And yes, a quarterback would be probably the thing that gets them closest, but you're probably not getting that guy at number 9. Right. I mean, if you are, you're getting pretty lucky. It's possible. But, I don't know. I think the odds aren't good enough. I think there's enough other needs. If you're drafting a quarterback just as, a potential option, like Eric was saying, like, maybe Justin Fields can be that guy. Like, if you've got a maybe, throw a dart in the second or third round, in my opinion, because there are enough other needs there. But we will see. I personally, I'm thinking they will draft another position there at number 9 or trade down. And bring in another quarterback to compete with Drew, and he will at least have the chance to, defend his position for a few weeks. Beyond that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but definitely a make or break year for him. Yeah, I don't know. I think so let's set the over under at Mizzou guys drafted 3.5. You go over or under? I
think I'm going under. Eric almost convinced me with Roundtree, but I don't know. Every year it's fewer guys than I expect, as I already explained the reason why earlier. And I don't know. I don't see, running backs are so much less valuable than they used to be. He's a guy who, like we said, has a lot of wear and tear. I think a lot of teams think they could probably get him as a free agent or someone like him as a free agent. So I am going to say it's Bolton, Borum, and Gillespie, and that is it.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. I was going to set it at 2.5, but I think it's almost certainly 3. So we've covered that. Next week, we'll break down the schemes of Missouri's new soccer coach and see how Jim Sterk was evaluate his process of finding a new soccer coach, and I don't know. We'll do some other things. Maybe something will even happen between now and next Wednesday, but we'll see.
But you are actually talking to Jim Sterk in person, correct?
I am talking to Jim Sterk on Friday.
Exciting.
That has not been. I'm waiting for he's on the road interviewing soccer coaches in Huntsville, Alabama. We're gonna have to reschedule email, but hasn't happened.
Definitely could happen.
Yeah.
So
I'm talking to Jim Sterk on Friday morning, and we'll have all the answers, and we'll talk about all that next week. But once again, thanks to Eric Edholm. Appreciate it. You can see all his stuff at Yahoo. Just go to the NFL page, the All Juice team, plenty of mock drafts, all kinds of, I think he's done 3 of them, all kinds of stuff over there. So appreciate him taking the time to talk with us. Appreciate you guys watching, those of you who will listen or watch on the replay, and appreciate 573 Tees for making this possible. Make sure to check them out at 573tees.com. Efforting the Ed Shang jersey. We'll let you know when it happens. Maybe next Wednesday. Talk to you later.